Leap Attack Barbarian is by far my favorite addition to D2R with all the different changes that they've made to the classes. Leap Attack itself is actually part of the speedrun meta now because of the amazing amount of mobility and the consistent damage output that you get. Whereas previously, most people thought that the Barbarian's early game was complete garbage, there was just no good way around it, and you either had to get Rush on BattleNet or just sit there screaming as a Warcry singer until your ears bled. Something I've never really done before is a full playthrough or a let's play for a character showing how I prioritize getting gear, leveling up the skill choices that I make, how I prioritize the different quests and my own progression path. And I figured it'd be really interesting just to kind of give you the entire idea of how I approach playing the game and a step-by-step, act-by-act, difficulty-by-difficulty guide to how to play the character itself, get the gear that you need, and have a really good and efficient time leveling and progressing through this story. While I didn't cover this originally, I just wanted to hop in real quick to give you an idea of what your stats and skills should look like as you're doing the Act 1 progression in normal while you're on the double swing version of Barbarian before you respec. If we were to go level by level, including having the Den of Evil point as your level 1 skill point, you really want to prioritize getting into Mace Mastery, making sure that you have Bash before level 6 so that you can pick up Double Swing. Being able to pick up Leap as well, I typically pick this up around level 10, so for every other point that we're putting in prior to that, you're literally just going to be maxing out Mace Mastery until you have at least 20% chance to crit. You also don't worry about putting in any of your points into the Warcry tree like I highlight later on in the video, so if you really wanted to, you have a couple different options. One, putting additional points into Double Swing is going to reduce the mana cost, and something that isn't abundantly clear is that the mana cost in Double Swing actually hits every time you attack. So while it costs 2 mana to use Double Swing, that's per hit, so it actually costs 4 mana. If you were to bump this up to maybe skill level 3 at this point, you're only looking at 1.5 mana or 3 mana per skill use. This would bring us up to level 12. I personally don't really worry about putting points into Bash. While it has a damage synergy with Double Swing, your weapon damage is so low that it really doesn't end up multiplying anything, so I'd rather get additional points into attack rating as well as crit chance for my last couple of points until I respec. For your stats, it's very easy to fall into the trap of just kind of putting everything into Vitality, but early on I really recommend getting up to at least 30 Dexterity with your first 2 levels, because that solid increase to your attack rating, you're really going to feel it while you're trying to fight monsters. The only thing to note is that obviously putting more points into Vitality is going to make it easier for you to survive, gaining you more life. Walking into Act 2, since we want to be able to pick up a Flail, which is the best weapon with the best attack speed that continues to fall under the Mace class of weapon, you need to have at least 41 Strength and 35 Dexterity to be able to use those weapons. No! Eliza! You beautiful idiot!
Let the gate be opened.
Alright, so we just got to the end of Act 1. Right now, as our Leap Attack Barbarian is actually still sitting on being a double swing bash with a lot of Mace Mastery and a little bit of utility. I'm walking out of the act at level 16. I have just enough strength and dexterity in to be able to use 2 flails when we walk into Act 2, and then everything else is going into Vitality. We're not going to respec until we hit at least level 19 in Act 2, where we're going to worry about gambling for a Maul, so we'll have a really heavy damage weapon to be able to use once we've actually swapped over to Leap Attack. For quests in Act 1, obviously we had to do the Den of Evil because we're going to need the respec, and the +1 skill point is really nice. We also went and rescued Decker Kane, not only to get a cow leg for when you inevitably want to do some normal cow runs, but also to gain access to a ring, which can be really important. Sometimes you can get resistances or attack rating. For us, we actually ended up getting this ring, which had chance to cast Shard Bolt Wind Struck, as well as mana per kill, which is actually really nice on the Barbarian. That a little bit of extra AoE damage from Charge Strike and then that mana per kill helps to offset the mana loss from Double Swing and ultimately Leap Attack later until we find a better ring. We also picked up the Malice so that we can go ahead and imbue something. Since Leap is going to be our primary mode of movement, we don't really have to worry about boots for run speed, but you could go ahead and imbue either a really nice base Maul that you find in Act 3 for a really good weapon, or you could even imbue something like a Barbarian Primal Helm for chances at plus skills. Just as an example of something that you could walk out of Act 1 with, We found this one to mace mastery, axe mastery, and blade mastery. If you happen to find a really good, unique, or rare weapon to use, you could throw this on, gain that attack rating, enhanced damage, and chance to crit. And this is something that I don't typically do, but I wanted to give you an idea of what I personally walk out of Act 1 with as far as resources are concerned, for things that are going to help me set up having a lot of good options for weapons, as well as resistances later. So we're sitting on 7 total chip gems. We're going to use those for re-rolling mauls for chances at really good high damage, as well as multiple sockets. If we were to keep any of these for use themselves, we would try to prioritize either chip sapphire for the cold damage to add a little bit of CC and utility to our attacks, or the rubies for life in a helmet or in armor in case you don't end up making a stealth armor. We only got 2 Tal runes and a Ral rune from our Countess farming, so this is most likely going to go into resistances, and these are most likely going to go into our weapon to have a little bit of additional tick damage, which is especially important when we're fighting bosses. I also picked up a 3 socket armor. You don't really need to worry about doing this yet, but ultimately I want to build a lion heart or potentially a treachery, so it's just nice to have the base. We're sitting on 2 sockets in case I get an Eth rune to be able to make stealth, which will help with our movement speed as well as hit recovery. I'm currently putting any sources of magic find that I have into as many sockets as possible. This is really important because early game uniques, rares, and sets can really go to define your build in very easiest and obvious ways. Something like Saigon's set being able to pick up Hasaris boots and a belt, as well as really good weapons that have crushing blow like Rixot's Keen and Nell Striker. The last thing, you should have a jewel. Ultimately, you are probably going to craft some crushing blow gloves or open wound belt, so having at least 1 extra jewel sitting around is always nice. Also look out for poison damage. You can throw these into a helmet and then continue to put on that helmet when you need additional damage, or throw it into something for your mercenary. Talking about mercenary, I actually picked up 2 really good options for an Act 2 mercenary early on. So we have this big enhanced damage with additional damage and AR to demons, cold damage, life leech, mana per kill, as well as attack speed on a Bardici. This thing is actually kind of nuts, so I might end up using it for our own leap attack weapon. And then we picked up an ethereal 1 socket Bardici, which again, you could throw either a chipped sapphire into that for cold damage for your mercenary, throw in a poison damage jewel, whatever you end up coming across. This would be a really good option getting into Act 3 and Act 4 on an Act 2 mark. Once you're into Act 2, the 2 most important things to go consider. 1, shop. You want to shop both at Farah and as well as Elzix. You're looking for anything that's going to give you resistances, magic find, run walk, good options for your mercenary, as well as a very specific armor, which hopefully I can find on the first attempt. So this is a really good example, and it's not exactly what we're looking for. It took me about 4 or 5 attempts, but look at this armor that you have right here. A 5% chance to cast a Frost Nova when struck, which is going to give you AoE damage clear. We would really prefer if this was actually Nova, which does a pretty substantial amount of damage this early in the game, with 26 lightning resistance on the chest piece. So if you're not using stealth at this point, being able to put 26 lightning res when you're walking into Act 2 and you're going to go be fighting beetles is a massive, massive find. If it could come with Nova, that would be even better. You have to be level 15 to 16 to be able to shop, specifically Elzix, looking for this Nova shield suffix on your armor. But if you had a full set of blue gear with all the Nova procs, anywhere between 40 to 60% chance to cast Nova, you will drastically increase your ability to solo farm and your AoE clear speed against huge monster packs, since you're going to be getting hit all of the time this early in the game. This is so good. I'm literally going to buy this right now and put this onto my character and use this both as some boss CC. Being able to cast Frost Nova on a boss every once in a while goes a long way to increase your survivability, and 26 lightning res again cannot be overstated just how powerful this is. After this, if you hadn't found a weapon yet for your mercenary, you're going to want to go ahead and buy one for them. Putting a weapon into their hand is so pivotal to actually give them a chance to survive and increase their DPS for you. And while it won't matter so much once we're on Leap Attack, realistically, the best mercenary to hire at this point is going to be Blessed Aim. Getting that additional attack rating for you and your mercenary will go a really long way to make sure that you're actually applying damage, because it's so difficult to stack attack rating at this point. We're going to make sure to do the Radamant quest, and then we're just going to skip as fast as we can down to Duriel and get him killed. So while we're level 20 at this point, at level 19, you can gamble a Maul from Elzix in Act 2. The more of these that you can gamble, the better, because there's actually just a good chance that when you gamble it the first time, you're actually going to get a really solid rare Maul. But what we're ultimately looking for is a magic Maul to be able to re-roll with 3 chip gems. So right now this is going to cost me 5,500 gold. I can buy 2 of them if I was willing to do so, since I know I'm going to be respecking. At this point, you could sell your other weapons or any of your other pieces of gear that you don't necessarily need. Like at this point, 4 life leech isn't really going to do me a lot. I might be able to sell that. But let's pick up our Maul. So we start off really nice with the 14 ED one here. We wouldn't even need to technically re-roll this, but when we do, we have a chance of getting open sockets, and that's what we're really looking for. I'll go ahead and sell my weapon, buy a second one. We have a 4 life leech here. This one's not good at all. I'd even be willing to resell this one back since we already have one to be re-rolling. Sell a little bit of our extra gear, sell this one back, buy another one. And this one again doesn't roll very well. It's worse than the one that we have. So technically speaking, you can hold on to both of them at this point and re-roll this. If it turns into complete garbage, you can always rely on using this until you have more resources to continue to re-roll the bad one. They do have a high strength requirement, so we are going to have to respec to be able to use it in the first place, but we don't necessarily have to worry about dexterity as well as any of our other stats than vitality, because ultimately leap attacks true damage output right now comes from the fact that it adds on a ton of damage as well as attack rating, and its AoE damage not only is going to consistently hit targets around you, but it's also going to hit twice on larger opponents. And when I say reroll, let's just go ahead and show you what that looks like. So throwing the weapon into your Roderick cube and then throwing 3 chip gems into it, we'll roll it as an eye level 25 Maul. You'll see that this one came out with 22 enhanced damage as well as 2 sockets. This could have a prefix and a suffix, but this one is already much better than the one that we already have. So at this point, I would sit and use this next one for re-rolling for chances at getting even better Mauls. Enhanced damage with lightning damage. The lightning damage is pretty nice in only 1 socket. At this point, I would stop. We don't have enough chip gems to continue. I wouldn't use this one particularly for myself since we have a much better one right here. And then talking about things that you could put into this Maul if you happen to have them. I could already slot in the 2 Tal runes. If I wanted to, I could throw this chip sapphire into it right now just to get that cold damage for a little bit of CC. Or if I happen to have an Eth rune, which would be really nice. Eth rune gives -25 target defense, which would be half effective on bosses, just increasing the chances that we're going to hit our targets much more often, as well as an Ith rune. An Ith rune is going to add 9 max damage onto the weapon, which is huge considering leap attack scales weapon damage so aggressively. Ith runes and Eth runes are going to be your best options this early in the game. So I figured it'd also be good to actually talk about the respec itself at this point, just so you don't accidentally mess it up. So we're going to put in enough strength to be able to use our Maul, and then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go look at my skills first to get a better idea of what our attack rating is going to look like. There are a couple different options that you can go with here for more utility versus more damage. Going down into Battle Cry is both going to decrease monster damage as well as decrease their defense, increasing the chances that you're going to hit it. One of the things that's really important to note though is just how important it is to scale up leap attack's damage from the jump. The more points that we can put into leap, the better our overall mobility is going to be, since we're going to be using leap for our primary mobility here moving forward. Since we're level 20, we can put 3 points into leap attack and you'll see that its damage and attack rating is already pretty nice. Let's go ahead and look at what it actually shows up here. So our attack rating is only 288. That's kind of rough. And our leap attack damage is actually already pretty massive. Remember that the synergy scales both the increase in damage as well as the AoE damage. So if I were to max out leap attack, this damage is going to go absolutely through the roof. You'll notice that our base damage is up to 45 to 90 damage, which is already higher than what our double swing was doing per attack. And the damage on the attack itself is up to 410%. We're left over with 2 additional skill points. It's really important to keep maxing out leap attack every time that you can. It wouldn't be completely out of the question to put at least 1 point into mace mastery just to give yourself that chance to crit, or to spec down into battle cry. We're going to worry about getting into stuff like find item and Grimward much later on in this skill tree, so I would recommend just the 1 point into mace mastery. And then the only other thing to keep in mind is some of the prereqs that you're going to have, trying to get into increased speed as well as natural resistance. Ultimately, later, we also want to get into battle cry and battle orders. So just keep in mind that in a couple levels, so probably when we're walking out of Act 3 is when we're going to want to worry about getting into those skills. You're a huge streamer. So congratulations, just like that, you're at the end of Act 2 and you're walking into Act 3. Right now, we're level 22, just about level 23. We've continued to max out both Leap and Leap Attack. I haven't really worried about getting down into the shouts. Quite frankly, I don't like using battle orders until it's going to be around for at least a few minutes, and that's in addition to battle command. So I'm going to worry about putting those points in much closer to level 30 and maybe around level 33. At this point, the rest of our points are going completely into vitality. We're really relying on both our nominal amount of attack rating with Leap Attack itself. So we have about an 80 to 90% chance to hit right now. But that AoE damage is doing a huge amount of work, and when our attack does land, we're doing a massive amount of damage with it. We've yet to put anything into our Maul because I haven't found anything that's good enough. We're sitting on some additional res and Frost Nova, some fire res, a little bit of stats here in the rings and in the belt. And then what we're also doing is making sure to prioritize some magic find. So I have magic find on the boots right here. It's actually a really nice amount. And then I also have magic find in a helmet and then magic find on some gloves. So altogether, we're looking at 52 magic find, which is actually a pretty big bump in overall magic find. And you throw this right on just before a boss is going to die. Or if you happen to be able to survive without your headpiece or your additional glove resistances, you could throw these on and just use it when you're generally leveling and killing elite mobs as you go, just to increase the chances of them dropping something really good for you. Since we're already level 22, the moment that I have a waypoint, or if I just want to be really picky right now, I am going to prioritize going to Ormus and shopping for a teleport staff. So let's see if I hit that on the first try. Because we're not high enough level yet to use a teleportation staff, it would require level 24. I only need to check the staffs that are in red. So this one, and this one right here, and then always check the secondary page. But nothing here has teleport charges on it. None of these are going to, because we're high enough level to be able to use them. Before you're level 24, you can use that trick to make it faster in shopping a teleport staff. Teleport staffs aren't as important on a leveling Leap Attack Barbarian, but it's always nice to have it in case you're in the Durance of Hate and you know that the exit is right on the other side of a wall. It's good to have the option of being able to teleport rather than needing to wait for a more opportune time to use something like Leap Attack. In Act 3, we're going to do all of the additional quests that we really can here. So we want to get the Jade figurine to get our plus to life. We want to get the Gidbin for a chance of really good rare ring. We want to get the Liam Neeson's tome so we can get those additional stat points. And then we're going to Zerg our way to Mephisto and get him killed as well. There's one other thing that you could do right now if you wanted to prioritize being able to use a shield, and that is shopping for a Warhammer for Heratli. So Heratli, after you hit level 20, will be able to sell Warhammers. They're really good bases. They need less life than a Maul, and they're also faster attack speed. So if you happen to get chilled, your attack animation won't take as long. It's really good for survivability, and it might be a better option walking into the Chaos Sanctuary with Diablo, since he has a tendency to chill you. So if you're hoping to stack a little bit of additional resistance on your shield and have a faster weapon, I would recommend buying a Warhammer from Heratli and then re-rolling that in the exact same way that we did for the Maul. And in my own playthroughs, I'll actually get a Maul and a Warhammer and then swap to it specifically for Diablo, just because he can be a little bit of a pain to kill on Leap Attack. Since he will freeze you and then laser hose you as well, he has a really high chance of just kind of killing you before you have an opportunity to react. Other than that, you're not really worrying about any other gear in Act 3, and we're looking to just get through it as fast as possible, making sure to pick up at least level 24 to level 25. Being able to farm stuff in the Flayer jungle for huge density with our Leap Attack AoE is really nice, as well as farming Battle Maid Serena since she has so many minions around her. Your AoE damage will go a long way to increase your clear speed there as well. There is technically one other thing that you can do, which is actually completely creating the Kaleem's Flail, which has a lot of really solid stats on it, and then actually going back and using that as a leveling weapon in Act 3 or even back in Act 2 if you have yet to complete the quest of smashing the compelling orb and you're also a little bit behind on levels or you didn't happen to get a nice Maul weapon. So while shopping for our teleport staff, it took us about, I don't know, maybe like 10 tries. We happened to find one just for 18,000 gold, which is pretty close to the cheapest that can be. That also comes with a whopping 40 cold res on it, which is really, really nice. So obviously it can roll with an additional affix, so a prefix in addition to the teleportation suffix. And being able to put resistance in this slot when you are swapped over, meaning not using your primary weapon or a shield if you happen to be doing that, it's just really nice. That little bit of added survivability can make using the teleport staff a much more feasible and just overall viable option on any build. And it's just really nice to be able to see it come with such a huge amount of resistance. So if you're willing to be a little bit more patient, maybe waiting until you get something like this would work better for you, especially if you're less experienced. Using a teleport staff on swap, it might save your life just 1 or 2 extra times. So we just finished Act 3, we just killed Mephisto. I happened to kill him on players 5 just for the chance at better drops. Hold on, I need to go save my mercenary's life real quick. And the fight wasn't too bad at all. We had our Magic Find gear on just at the end, right before he dies, to get a little bit of better loot from him. Our gear hasn't changed out too much. I did happen to find an Eth rune, so we went and put that into our Maul for that minus target defense. That's really going to help since we haven't really put in a ton for Leap Attack's attack rating. We are sitting at just over 800, which still we're maintaining that 85-ish% chance to hit, and the Eth rune will help out a ton. So we're sitting on multiple pieces of Frost Nova. Of note, we got a max damage AR with Dex in Res Ring from Ormus, which was really nice for that reward. We haven't really changed out any of our other gear other than this min damage ring. We've continued to max out Leap Attack and Leap. We haven't put points into anything else. Again, I'm not going to worry about Battle Command until I'm around level 30-ish. Or level 33, so I'll make sure to have the points in there by that time comes, and then having 1 point in the Iron Skin so I can pick up natural res, which will go a really long way since typically we're going to be relying on high damage weapons and not using a resistant shield like Ancient's Pledge. A big pickup for the mercenary, if you have not found one already, is to get a pike or a poleaxe. It's going to drastically increase his damage, so you can't see it behind my big head, but he's doing about 50 to 157 damage right now. So if you did not find one of these in Act 3, we're actually going to be able to shop them walking into Act 4. Hey, real quick, I put together the entirety of the normal progression for this thing, and it's like close to an hour-long video, so I'm cutting it in half, and I'm going to put out part 1 here and part 2 shortly thereafter. I can also put together the entirety of the video for people who might want to see that. Let me know down in the comments if that's something that you would prefer, but I'll include the timestamps here, I'll include the timestamps there, links to each video in the other video, so you don't get lost. They'll have similar titles, but with part 1 and part 2, you get the deal. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoy it.